So far, we have been working on a composition that was created as a result of importing the Illustrator file as a composition. But what if you don't have an Illustrator file to start with? How do you go about creating a composition from scratch? Well, there are a couple of different ways of doing it. And that's what we're going to talk about in this tutorial. Creating a new composition from scratch. Let's first go ahead and close this project by going to File, Close Project. And that will take us back to square one. And to create a new composition, we can either import a file in, and as we do it, we can ask After Effects to create a composition from that file. So we can do that by going to File, Import, File. And let's say, for example, we select this logo here. As we select the logo, we can come and turn this option on, which should by default be turned off. You can turn on where it says Create Composition, and if it's turned on, and if you then import it, that's going to bring the file in, as you can see here. As well as bringing the file, it's going to create a composition, and it will put the file inside that composition, so it's ready for us to make some changes. In other words, I can now go back to this file. Let's say I press S to change the scale, and I can make all these changes to the file. If you didn't create a composition when you imported the file in, you could do the following. So if I go and delete these, it will ask me if I'm sure. I'll confirm this. If I just go and import the file again, if I go File, Import, and let's say, for example, I select the file, and I didn't create a composition at the beginning, so I just go and import it. If I don't have a composition now, one way to create a composition based on the settings of the file that you're using is by dragging the file from here down to this icon here, this little film strip, and you let go. Or you can drag it from here on top of this area here in the composition area. Or you can simply right-click on the file and then choose New Comp from Selection. That's going to do the same thing as we did before, so that's going to create a composition and then put the file inside that composition as the only layer. Let me show you a couple of different ways of doing that. I'm going to go and delete these again, so I'll just select them and then press Delete and confirm that. We can also click on this button here where it says New Composition from Footage, and then it will ask us which file to use. I can just go and pick any file, so if I go to my maybe documents here and go to my video clips, and let's say I create a composition from this clip here. If I import that, again, that's very similar to what we did before, so that puts the file inside the project panel, as well as creating a composition and then placing that file inside that composition as the only layer. And this is a video clip, different than what we had before, so I can just click and drag around. We'll talk about the video clips and the timeline in detail later on. But what if you want to create a composition from scratch? I mean, literally from scratch, so you don't have any files to start with, you just want to start from scratch, and you want to have a blank canvas you can then place things into. Well, let's have a look at how that's done as well. So let me go and delete these. If you want to create a composition from scratch, you can either go to the composition menu at the top here and then choose a new composition, or use the shortcut, of course, Ctrl-N or Command-N, or you can simply come and click on this button here, and that's also going to do the same thing. That will open up the composition settings dialog box. The first option here is the name of the composition, so let's go and call this First Comp. And down here we have the presets, so if I click here, I can pick any of these presets. These are some of the most commonly used presets, that's why they're in this list here. And usually they'll follow a specific format. So first, you'll have the name of the format. So in this case, for example, we have DVC Pro HD here, or HDV, or PAL1, or Cineon, and so on. So these are the formats. And next to it, you'll have some numbers. So the first set of numbers, they refer to the height of the frame in pixels. So this is HD TV format, and the height is 1080 pixels. And on this one, for example, this is DVC Pro HD format, and the height is 720 pixels. The number on the right-hand side, the last number, is the frame rate. So this is how many frames you have every second. This is called FPS, or the frame rate. And usually, in Europe, we use 25 frames a second for broadcast, and in the States, they use 30 frames a second, and you can change this here. If I go and pick this HD TV 1080 25, this is what we call Full HD, and you can see that as soon as I do that, the width is set to 1920 and the height is set to 1080. That's the resolution for Full HD. If you're looking for a specific size, let's say for example you want to create an animation that's going to be displayed on a kiosk or a mobile device or something, you can just go and change the numbers here manually. So if I wanted this to be lower or higher, I can just click and drag, and you see because this button here where it says Lock Aspect Ratio to 16:9 is turned on, the numbers are changing at the same time. If I want to change them independently, I can uncheck this. I can now change the width or the height independently. So I'm going to go back and pick the same preset again, so that was HD TV 1080 25. One question that I get asked quite often is, what is the best format? And there is no such thing, so it depends on what your intention is with this file. Are you going to display your work on a mobile device? Is it going to be displayed on a TV monitor? Is it going to be projected? So that all depends. That's why, unfortunately, I couldn't give you just one number that works best for everything. That's going to be the same for the exporting as well. When we get to that final chapter about exporting, I'll say the same thing. There is no one format that works best for everything. Asking which preset is the best or which format is the best is very similar to asking something like, which phone is the best? Well, that depends. If you want lots of features on your phone, you probably want to get a smartphone. Whereas if you just want to make a call, you can get away with using even a rotary phone. So it all depends. There is no one answer that I could give you that will work best for all situations. Under the width and the height, you'll have the pixel aspect ratio, or the PAR, and this should usually be set to square pixels. There are some other reasons why you might want to change this to something different than a square. I'll leave this alone for now. And underneath that is the frame rate, or the FPS. This is how many frames you want to have every second. Like I said, the standard for Europe is 25, and in the States it's 30, so you can change this again to whatever you like. And the resolution is something you can change afterwards as well. If you remember, this was the resolution here, so you could change the resolution here as well. I'll leave this set to full for now. And the start time code is the label of your first frame, so I'll leave this set to 0. And the duration is how long you want the entire composition to be. By default, it's going to be set to 30, but of course you can change this. The way you read these numbers is at the very beginning, you have hours, then you have minutes, and then seconds and frames. So right now, this tells us that this is 0 hours, 0 minutes, 30 seconds, and 0 frames. I can change this. Let's say if I want this to be 10 seconds long, I just go and change that to 10. And now the composition is going to be 10 seconds exactly. Now you don't actually have to worry about these columns and zeros and so on. I can delete the whole thing. And if I want this to be, let's say, 5 seconds long, all I need to do is to type in 5, and this is 5 frames now. And if I type in 5, 0, that's 50 frames, or in other words, it's 2 seconds based on 25 frames a second. And if I type in one more 0, so that's 5 seconds, 0 frames. So if you just go and type in a 3-digit number like this, or a 4-digit number, you're going to set the seconds. So if I, for example, want this to be 15 seconds long, I can go and type in 1500, and that makes it exactly 15 seconds long. And every time I see a double 0, I can actually replace that with a full stop. So if I type in 15 full stop, that also means 15 seconds. And it tells us what this 15 full stop means on the right hand side. The last option here is the color for the background. So this can be anything you like. So if I click on the color swatch here, the way the color swatch works in pretty much any Adobe application is that on the right hand side, you have this vertical bar and you pick the color from here first. Let's say, for example, you would like this to be a bluish color. So you just go and pick it here. So you first pick the color, and on the left hand side, you pick the shade of that color. So on the right, you pick the hue. Let's say it's somewhere here around about yellow. And on the left, you pick the saturation and the brightness of that color. So let's say I want something like this. And then when I'm done, I just go and press OK. And that sets it. And in fact, it actually names it medium yellow as well. So it remembers the color there. After this, we just go and press OK. And this is how you create a composition from scratch.